For 3 weeks, the baby's lips stayed cracked and dry. Every doctor said the same thing. Try another formula. The mother spent thousands on specialty brands, consulted the best pediatricians money could buy, filled her pantry with every hypoallergenic option on the market. The baby kept vomiting, kept losing weight, kept fading. Then a night nurse noticed something everyone else refused to see, and what she did in that nursery at 2 a.m. will break your heart and restore your faith in humanity at the same time. Roman and Margaret Ashford had everything: mansions, private staff, a nursery that cost more than most people's houses. But their daughter Sophia was dying, 6 weeks old, and losing weight every single day. Margaret tried everything: organic formulas from Europe, amino acid blends that cost $70 a can, consultation after consultation with top pediatricians. All of them said the same thing: keep trying different brands. She'll adjust. But Sophia wasn't adjusting. She was starving to death while her parents slept upstairs, and her father flew to business meetings overseas. What they didn't know? The answer wasn't in another expensive can of formula. It was in the body of the woman they just hired to watch their baby through the night. The woman they called the help. The woman who just buried her own daughter 2 weeks before. What happened when that mother walked into the nursery at 4 a.m? You need to see it for yourself. But before we continue this story, I need something from you. Hit that subscribe button right now. Drop a comment and tell me where in the world you're watching from, because I need to know how far these stories are reaching. If you believe invisible people matter, if you believe the underdog deserves to win, then prove it. Subscribe, comment, be part of this movement. This story found you today for a reason. Now, let me show you what happened next. Leah Mitchell had buried her daughter on a Tuesday. The funeral was small. Just her sister Charlotte, and Charlotte's husband Ben. Leah's 2 other children, 7-year-old Nate and 4-year-old Lily, stayed home with a neighbor because Leah couldn't bear to make them watch their baby sister get lowered into the ground. Sarah Grace Mitchell, 3 months old. Born healthy, thriving, perfect. And then one morning, Leah walked into the nursery to start her day and found her daughter cold. The paramedics came. They tried, but there was nothing to try for. Sarah had been gone for hours, they said. Sudden infant death syndrome, SIDS. It happens sometimes. No warning, no explanation, just a baby who goes to sleep and never wakes up. There's nothing you could have done, the paramedic told her, his hand on her shoulder while Leah sat on the floor of her apartment, keening like an animal. This wasn't your fault, but it felt like her fault. It felt like she should have checked on Sarah one more time before she went to bed, should have kept her in the room instead of the nursery, should have sensed something, anything, that would have told her to hold her baby girl just a little bit longer. Now, 2 weeks later, Leah's body hadn't gotten the message that Sarah was gone. Her breasts still filled with milk every 3 hours, aching and heavy with biology that didn't care about grief. She'd pump in bathroom stalls at work, crying silently while the machine pulled milk meant for a child who would never drink it. Then she'd pour it down the sink and watch it swirl away, and it felt like losing Sarah all over again. Charlotte had taken Nate and Lily temporarily. Just until you get back on your feet, she'd said, her voice gentle but firm. You need time to grieve, Leah. You need to process this. But Leah couldn't afford to grieve. She had bills. The funeral alone cost $8,000, a debt that sat on her kitchen table like a vulture, waiting to pick her apart. She had rent. She had 2 children who needed to eat. She couldn't fall apart. So when the staffing agency called about a position at a private estate night nurse for a newborn, good pay, live-in option available, Leah took it without hesitation. That's how she ended up at the Ashford mansion on a cold October night, standing in a nursery that cost more than she'd earned in 5 years, staring at a baby who was dying in slow motion. The estate was massive, 40 acres of manicured lawns, gardens that looked like something from a magazine, a main house with 12 bedrooms and staff quarters tucked discreetly in the back. The kind of place where people spoke in hushed tones and moved like ghosts, trying not to disturb the wealth that hung in the air like expensive perfume. Mrs. Karen ran the household staff with an iron fist. She was in her early 60s, gray hair pulled into a severe bun, eyes that missed nothing. She'd greeted Leah at the service entrance on her first day with a clipboard and a warning. The Ashfords value their privacy, Mrs. Karen said, walking Leah through gleaming hallways lined with art that probably cost more than Leah's life. You're here to feed the baby, change the baby, and keep the baby quiet during night hours. Mrs. Ashford is particular about boundaries. The last night nurse got too involved. She was let go. What does too involved mean? Leah asked. Mrs. Karen's expression didn't change. She offered unsolicited opinions about the baby's care. Mrs. Ashford doesn't appreciate that from staff. They reached the nursery. It was beautiful, soft gray walls, white furniture that looked hand-carved, a chandelier that threw soft light across a room bigger than Leah's entire apartment. Everything was perfect, except for the baby in the bassinet. Sophia Ashford was 6 weeks old and looked like she was made of paper. Her skin had a grayish tint. Her cheeks were hollow. Her tiny fingers looked skeletal. She was awake, staring at nothing, too weak to even cry. She's been fussy with feeding, Mrs. Karen said, as if describing a minor inconvenience. Mrs. Ashford has tried several formulas. The current one is warmer, 4 ounces every 3 hours. Leah stepped closer to the bassinet. Sophia's lips were cracked and peeling. Her breathing was shallow and fast. This wasn't a fussy eater. This was a baby in medical distress. Has she seen a doctor recently? Leah asked carefully. Mrs. Karen's eyes narrowed slightly. Mrs. Ashford has consulted with 3 different pediatricians. They all say she'll adjust to the formula eventually. Some babies take time. Leah looked at the baby, then at Mrs. Karen. She thought about Sarah, about the promise she'd made, standing over that tiny casket in the rain. Never again. I will never stand by and watch a child suffer when I can do something. Never again. When does my shift start? Leah asked quietly. Now, Mrs. Karen said. And Miss Mitchell? Remember your place. Mrs. Karen left. Leah was alone with a dying baby and a choice she wasn't ready to make. Not yet, but soon. Leah met Margaret Ashford on her second night. It was 11 p.m. Leah was in the nursery, trying to get Sophia to take even 2 ounces of the hypoallergenic formula that cost $70 a can. The baby's mouth would open, the nipple would touch her lips, and she'd turn her head away with what little strength she had left. Not crying, not fighting, just refusing, because eating had only ever brought her pain. The door opened without warning. Margaret stood in the doorway wearing silk pajamas that probably cost more than Leah's monthly rent, her blonde hair perfect even at this hour, a sleep mask pushed up on her forehead. Is she still making noise? Margaret asked. Not to Leah, to the room in general, as if Leah were part of the furniture. She's having trouble with the feeding, Mrs. Ashford, Leah said carefully. She's only taken half an ounce in the last hour. Margaret sighed, the kind of sigh that spoke of inconvenience rather than concern. Did you warm it to exactly 98 degrees? The last nurse always got the temperature wrong. Yes, ma'am, I used the... Then she's just being difficult. Margaret walked to the window, looked out at the dark gardens. My mother said I was the same way. Fussy, particular, she'll grow out of it. Leah looked down at Sophia, at the way her ribs were starting to show through her onesie, at the sunken soft spot on her head that meant dehydration, at the grayish tint to her skin that meant her body was shutting down. Mrs. Ashford, Leah said, keeping her voice even, professional, non-threatening. I think Sophia might need to see a doctor. Her weight. She's seen 3 doctors. Margaret's voice went cold. 3 very expensive, very qualified pediatricians who all said the same thing. Try different formulas. Her body will adjust. Are you suggesting you know more than 3 board-certified specialists? No, ma'am. You're here to feed her and change her. That's all. If I wanted medical advice from the help, I would have hired a pediatrician as a night nurse. Margaret turned toward the door. Get her to finish the bottle. I have a charity luncheon tomorrow, and I need sleep. She left. Leah stood there, holding a bottle that Sophia wouldn't drink, and feeling the weight of her own powerlessness settle over her like a shroud. The next morning, Leah was cleaning bottles in the nursery kitchenette when she heard voices in the hallway. She recognized Mrs. Karen's clipped tones, and then a deeper voice, male, impatient. I'm flying out tonight, the man was saying. Roman Ashford. The billionaire husband Leah had only glimpsed once in 3 days, always on his phone, always moving. The Singapore deal won't close itself. I'll be back next week. Of course, Mr. Ashford, Mrs. Karen said. Should I have the car ready at 3? 2:30. I want to avoid traffic. Footsteps. Then, almost as an afterthought, how's the baby? Mrs. Ashford says she's adjusting to the new formula. Good, good. More footsteps fading. Make sure Margaret has everything she needs while I'm gone. Leah waited until the voices disappeared before she let out the breath she'd been holding. Make sure Margaret has everything she needs. Not the baby, Margaret. She looked at Sophia, sleeping fitfully in her bassinet, and felt rage build in her chest, hot and righteous and dangerous. That afternoon, Mrs. Karen found Leah in the nursery and closed the door behind her. Her face was stern. I saw you on the monitor last night, Mrs. Karen said quietly, trying to give Mrs. Ashford advice. The baby needs you to follow instructions, nothing more. Mrs. Karen stepped closer. Let me tell you about the last night nurse. Her name was Hannah. Sweet girl, very caring. She lasted 2 weeks before she made the same mistake you almost made. What mistake? Thinking she had the right to question Mrs. Ashford's decisions. Mrs. Karen's voice dropped. Hannah suggested Mrs. Ashford try donor breast milk, said she'd read studies about babies with severe allergies. Do you know what happened? Leah shook her head. Mrs. Ashford had her escorted out by security within the hour. No final paycheck, no reference. She called every staffing agency in the state and had Hannah blacklisted. That girl will never work in childcare again. Mrs. Karen paused. Do you understand what I'm telling you? Leah understood perfectly. Stay silent. Stay invisible. Let this baby die quietly while her mother sleeps and her father flies to Singapore. Yes, ma'am, Leah said. Good. Mrs. Karen opened the door. Because you seem like a smart woman, and I'd hate to see you throw away your income over something that isn't your problem to solve. She left. Leah sat in the rocking chair with Sophia, who'd only eaten 3 ounces in 12 hours, and felt the walls closing in. Her phone buzzed. A text from Charlotte. Bill collectors called again. They're threatening legal action. How much longer until you can pay? Leah looked at the baby. At the crib that cost $5,000. At the nursery full of equipment that could save a dozen families like hers. At the child who was dying because her mother's pride was more important than her survival. She didn't answer Charlotte. She didn't know what to say. Days blurred together. Leah worked 12-hour night shifts, 8 p.m. to 8 a.m., alone with Sophia in the nursery while the rest of the mansion slept. During the day, she'd sleep in the staff quarters, a small but clean room with a twin bed and a window that looked out at the garden. Then she'd wake up, pump the milk her body still produced for Sarah, pour it down the bathroom sink, and report back to the nursery by 8. Every night, Sophia got weaker. The formulas kept changing. Organic from Switzerland, soy-based from California, amino acid formula that cost $90 a can and smelled like chemicals, goat milk formula that Margaret ordered from a boutique company in France. Each one arrived with hope maybe this one would work, and each one ended the same way. Sophia would take an ounce, maybe 2 if Leah was patient. Then her tiny body would convulse, and she'd vomit everything back up, screaming silently because she barely had the strength to make sound anymore. Leah would clean her up, change her clothes, try again, and again, and again, until Sophia's body went limp with exhaustion and she'd fall into a fitful sleep, whimpering with hunger she was too weak to satisfy. On the 5th night, Leah weighed her. 6 pounds, 1 ounce, down from 8 pounds at birth. 6 weeks old and she weighed less than most newborns. Leah had seen this before. Not with her own children, thank God, but with her cousin Anna's son 5 years ago. The baby had screamed for months, lost weight despite constant feeding, covered in rashes that wouldn't heal. They'd gone through every formula on the market before a lactation consultant finally identified it. Severe cow's milk protein allergy. The kind that made every formula on the market, even the hypoallergenic ones, toxic to the baby's system. The only thing that had saved Anna's son was breast milk. Direct from Anna, then from a donor network when Anna's supply ran low. Within 2 weeks, the baby had gained weight, the rashes cleared, and he'd started thriving. Leah knew what Sophia needed. She'd known from the first night. But knowing and acting were 2 different things. On the 7th night, Margaret came to the nursery at midnight. She was dressed for an event designer dress, jewelry that caught the light like captured stars. She looked beautiful, untouchable. I'm going out, she announced. There's a gallery opening downtown. I'll be back by 3. Leah looked up from where she sat with Sophia, who just vomited up another feeding. Mrs. Ashford, I really think we should. I don't pay you to think. Margaret's smile was ice. I pay you to handle the baby so I don't have to. That's the arrangement. But she's not. Not what? Not adjusting fast enough? Babies are resilient. She'll figure it out. Margaret checked her reflection in the nursery mirror, adjusted an earring. My mother always said I was dramatic as an infant. Look how I turned out. She left in a cloud of perfume that probably cost more than Leah's funeral debt. Leah sat there, holding a 6-pound baby who should have weighed 10 by now, and felt something inside her break. That night, she did something she shouldn't have. At 2 a.m., when the house was silent and even Mrs. Karen had gone to bed, Leah walked downstairs to the main kitchen. She'd seen the home office earlier, while Mrs. Karen gave her the tour of a room lined with bookshelves and expensive art, with a desk that held a computer and stacks of papers. She shouldn't go in there. Staff weren't allowed in the family spaces. But she needed to know. Needed to understand if what she suspected was true. The office door was unlocked. Leah slipped inside, her heart hammering. She didn't turn on the lights, just used her phone flashlight, swept it across the desk, and there it was. A folder labeled Sophia, medical records. Leah's hands shook as she opened it. Consultation notes from Dr. Reynolds, dated 8 days ago. Test results showing elevated inflammation markers, poor weight gain, symptoms consistent with food protein-induced enterocolitis syndrome, and then, at the bottom of the page in Dr. Reynolds' handwriting, recommend immediate trial of donor breast milk or wet nurse arrangement given severity of protein allergies and failure to thrive on all formula options. Discussed with parents. Mother declined, citing personal preference against breast milk from non-family sources. Father deferred to mother's judgment. Without alternative nutrition source, infant at significant risk of hospitalization within 2 to 3 weeks. Prognosis concerning. Mother declined. The words swam in Leah's vision. She read them again, her breath coming short and sharp. They knew. The doctors had told them exactly what Sophia needed, and Margaret had said no. Not because it wouldn't work, because she found it distasteful. Because the idea of her daughter drinking milk from someone else's body was beneath her standards. Because her comfort mattered more than her daughter's survival. Leah took photos of the pages with trembling hands, then closed the folder and put everything back exactly as she'd found it. She walked back upstairs to the nursery where Sophia lay in her expensive crib, surrounded by equipment that couldn't save her, and felt fury burn through her grief like fire through paper. This baby was dying because of pride, because of class, because people like Margaret looked at people like Leah and saw tools, not humans. Help, not heroes. Leah sat in the rocking chair and unbuttoned her uniform. Her breasts were full, aching, heavy with milk meant for Sarah. Milk she'd been pouring down sinks for 2 weeks while a baby starved 15 feet away. She looked at the camera in the corner. The red light was on. It was always on. She looked at Sophia, whose lips were cracked and bleeding, whose body was giving up. She thought about Hannah, blacklisted and destroyed for suggesting this exact solution. She thought about her funeral debt, about Charlotte's patience wearing thin, about Nate and Lily asking when Mommy was coming home. She thought about Sarah, cold in the ground, and the promise she'd made, never again. Leah buttoned her uniform back up and sat there until sunrise, holding a baby she wasn't allowed to save, feeling her own body offer salvation that society said she had no right to give. Not yet, but soon. The breaking point was coming. She could feel it. The breaking point came on the 9th night. Leah was in the nursery at 1 a.m., trying to get Sophia to take a bottle of the latest formula, an amino acid blend that cost $120 a can, and tasted, according to the label, mild and pleasant. Sophia's mouth touched the nipple and she recoiled, turning her head with what little strength she had. She'd taken 4 ounces total in the last 24 hours. 4 ounces. A baby her age needed 24. Leah set the bottle down and picked Sophia up, cradling her against her chest. The baby was so light now, like holding a bird. Her breathing was rapid and shallow, her body working overtime just to stay alive on the calories it wasn't getting. "I know, baby girl," Leah whispered. "I know it hurts. I know you're hungry. I see you." Sophia's eyes pale blue, like her mother's, looked up at Leah with something that felt like understanding. Or maybe it was just exhaustion. Maybe this baby had simply given up hoping that someone would help her. Leah's phone buzzed on the side table. She grabbed it one-handed. A text from Charlotte. Leah, I'm sorry, but I need to know your plan. The kids need stability. I can't keep doing this indefinitely. Ben's worried about our own bills. When are you coming for them? Then another text, right after. The funeral home called me. They said if you don't pay at least $3,000 by Friday, they're sending it to collections. That'll destroy your credit. Please tell me you have a plan. Friday was 3 days away. Leah had $900 in her checking account. She'd get paid at the end of the week, $2,000 for 2 weeks of work, but that still left her short, and if she lost this job before payday, she'd have nothing. She looked down at Sophia, at this baby who was dying because her mother valued appearances over survival. Her phone buzzed again. This time, it was an email. The subject line made her stomach drop. Final notice, rent due. Her landlord. The apartment she was technically still paying for even though she was living at the estate. $800 due in 5 days or eviction proceedings would begin. Everything was collapsing. Everything. Leah set her phone down and just held Sophia, rocking slowly, feeling the weight of impossible choices crushing her from all sides. She thought about Sarah, about the funeral that had cost $8,000, because Leah wanted her baby girl to have something beautiful, something dignified, even though she couldn't afford it. She'd picked the white casket with pink roses carved into the wood. She'd chosen the plot under the oak tree, where sunlight would filter through in the mornings. She'd bought the headstone that read, Sarah Grace Mitchell, Heaven's Newest Angel. All of it on credit she couldn't pay back. All of it because her daughter deserved to be honored, even in death. Now she was holding another woman's daughter who was dying, and that woman was at a gallery opening downtown, drinking champagne and pretending her child wasn't starving to death. Something inside Leah cracked open, something that had been holding her together since she'd found Sarah cold in her crib. The grief she'd been pushing down, the rage she'd been swallowing, the guilt that had been eating her alive for 2 weeks. It all came pouring out. I'm so sorry, Leah whispered to Sophia, tears streaming down her face. I'm so sorry you were born to someone who doesn't see you. I'm sorry your life is worth less to her than her pride. I'm sorry the world is so cruel and unfair that babies die while their mothers sleep, and I can't. Her voice broke. She thought about the medical records, about Dr. Reynolds' note. Mother declined. Father deferred. Without alternative nutrition source, infant at significant risk. She thought about her own body, producing milk for a daughter who would never drink it while this daughter starved. She thought about the camera in the corner, the red light always watching, Mrs. Karen's warning about boundaries and consequences. She thought about Hannah, blacklisted and destroyed. She thought about her funeral debt, her rent, her children living with Charlotte, everything she'd lose if she acted. And then she thought about the promise, the one she'd made in the rain, standing over Sarah's grave, while Charlotte held her hand and the world felt like it was ending. Never again. I will never stand by and watch a child suffer when I can do something. Never again. Leah looked up at the camera, stared directly into the lens. I see you watching, she said quietly. I know you're recording this. I know what I'm about to do breaks your rules. I know it'll cost me everything. She stood up, walked to the rocking chair in the corner, the one that wasn't visible from the camera angle. She'd noticed that on the first night, there was a blind spot, a small space where the camera couldn't quite see. She sat down with Sophia and adjusted the baby in her arms. But I'd rather lose everything than lose another child, Leah whispered. I'd rather be fired, blacklisted, destroyed, than watch you die when I have exactly what you need. Her hands moved to the buttons of her uniform. They shook so badly she could barely get them undone. Sarah, baby, she breathed, talking to her daughter who was gone. This is for you. This is the promise I made. I'm sorry I couldn't save you, but I can save her. I have to save her. She unbuttoned her uniform completely. Her nursing bra was soaked. She'd been leaking for the last hour, her body responding to Sophia's cries the way it would have responded to Sarah's. Sophia stirred in her arms, sensing something different. Her little head turned, searching instinctively for what her body knew it needed. That's right, baby girl, Leah whispered. I've got you. I see you. You're not invisible anymore. She brought Sophia close, positioned her carefully, supported her head the way she'd done with Nate, with Lily, with Sarah, the way her body remembered even though her heart was shattered. Sophia latched immediately. The relief was instant and overwhelming. The baby's little hands, which had been limp for days, came up and pressed against Leah's chest. Her eyes, which had been glazed and unfocused, suddenly sharpened. She drank like a child who'd been wandering in the desert and finally found water. Leah's tears fell into Sophia's sparse blonde hair. "There you go," she breathed. "There you go, sweet girl. No more pain, no more hunger. I've got you." For the first time in 9 days, Sophia drank without vomiting, without crying, without suffering. She drank until she was full, and then she fell asleep in Leah's arms, really asleep, deeply asleep, the kind of sleep that babies only fall into when their bellies are finally satisfied. Leah held her for another hour, terrified to move, terrified to break whatever miracle had just happened. She knew what was coming. The footsteps in the hallway, the accusations, the police, maybe, the end of everything. But for 1 hour, she got to hold a baby who wasn't suffering, and that was enough. That had to be enough. The clock on the wall read 2:47 a.m. when Leah heard it. Footsteps, multiple sets, coming down the hallway fast. The door flew open. Margaret stood there in her gallery opening dress, mascara smudged, phone in her hand with the security camera app open. Behind her, Mrs. Karen. Behind her, Roman, who must have come home early from Singapore. All three of them staring at Leah with expressions ranging from horror to rage to something Leah couldn't quite name. Margaret's voice came out strangled, barely human. "What the hell have you done to my daughter?" Leah stood slowly, carefully, Sophia still sleeping peacefully in her arms for the first time in weeks. "I saved her life," Leah said quietly. Her voice didn't shake. She'd made her choice. Whatever came next, she'd face it. "That's what I've done." Margaret's face twisted into something ugly. "You put your body on my child without permission. You." Her voice was rising, shrill and sharp. "You touched her. You." "She was dying," Leah said, louder now. "Your daughter was starving to death, and I had exactly what she needed, so I gave it to her." "You had no right." Margaret lunged forward, and Mrs. Karen caught her arm. "No right. She's my daughter. You're the help. You don't get to make decisions about." "Then where were you?" Leah's voice cut through Margaret's hysteria like a blade. "Where were you while your daughter was vomiting up every meal? While her lips were cracking and bleeding? While her ribs started showing through her skin? I was trying every formula. The doctors told you what she needed 8 days ago." Leah's control finally snapped. "I saw the medical records. Dr. Reynolds told you she has a protein allergy. He told you she needed breast milk. And you said no because it was beneath you. Because you couldn't stomach the idea of your precious daughter drinking milk from someone like me." The words hung in the air like a grenade. Margaret's face went white, then red. "How dare you?" "How dare I what? Save your child's life?" Leah looked down at Sophia, still sleeping peacefully, her skin already looking less gray, her breathing steady and deep. "Look at her. Really look at her. When's the last time she slept like this?" Margaret's mouth opened, closed. She looked at her daughter, and something flickered across her face, something that might have been recognition or shame or horror at what she was seeing. Roman stepped forward. He'd been silent until now, just watching with an expression Leah couldn't read. He was still in his business suit, tie loosened, exhaustion written in the lines around his eyes. "How long has she been like that?" he asked. His voice was rough, raw. "Sleeping like that? Since she nursed." "About an hour and a half." Roman turned to Margaret. His face was very still, very calm. The kind of calm that comes before an explosion. "When's the last time Sophia slept more than 20 minutes without screaming?" Margaret's hands were shaking. "I don't. She's been adjusting to the formula. I told you." "When, Margaret?" 2 weeks. Maybe 3. I don't keep track of every." Margaret's voice cracked. "The doctors said she'd adjust. They said she needed breast milk." Roman's voice was ice now. "I saw Dr. Reynolds' notes before I left for Singapore. He wrote it down in black and white. Recommend donor milk or wet nurse. Mother declined. You declined. You decided your comfort was more important than our daughter's survival." "That's not." Margaret's face crumpled. "I wasn't going to let some stranger." "She was dying." Roman's voice broke. "Our daughter was dying, and you were at a gallery opening." The silence was crushing. Mrs. Karen cleared her throat. "Mr. Ashford, should I call the authorities? This woman had unauthorized physical contact with the baby. There are legal implications." "No." Roman held up a hand. His eyes never left Sophia. "No police." "But sir," I said no. Roman walked closer to Leah. She held her ground, held Sophia tighter. Let me see her. Leah hesitated, then carefully transferred Sophia to her father's arms. The baby stirred slightly but didn't wake, didn't start crying, just settled against Roman's chest and kept sleeping. Roman stared down at his daughter, at her peaceful face, at the way her little hand curled against his shirt. Leah saw his jaw clench, saw his eyes go bright with tears he was fighting not to shed. She's heavier, he whispered. I can feel it. God, she feels different. She drank 6 ounces, Leah said quietly, without vomiting, without pain. Her body knew what it needed. Roman looked up at Leah. How did you know? How did you know this would work? My cousin's son, same thing. Severe protein allergy, nearly died before they figured it out. I recognized the symptoms on my first night here. Leah's voice was steady. And I just buried my own daughter 2 weeks ago. My body's still producing milk. So when I saw Sophia suffering, when I saw what she needed, I couldn't watch another baby die. Not when I could do something. The words settled over the room like snow. Margaret made a sound, half sob, half something else. She was staring at Sophia with an expression Leah had never seen on her face before, something that looked almost like grief. I didn't know, Margaret whispered. I didn't know it was this bad. She cried all the time. You thought she was inconvenient, Roman said flatly. You thought she was being difficult. You thought. His voice broke again. Jesus Christ, Margaret, we almost lost her. I'll call Dr. Reynolds, Mrs. Karen said quietly. He should examine the baby, document whatever's happened here. Roman nodded, still holding Sophia, still staring at her like he was seeing her for the first time. Yes, call him now. Tell him it's urgent. Mrs. Karen left. Margaret sank into the rocking chair, her designer dress pooling around her, her face in her hands. She was crying now, ugly, broken sobs that shook her whole body. I didn't know, she kept saying. I didn't know. I didn't know. Roman looked at Leah. Pack your things, you're fired. Leah's heart stopped. She'd expected it, but hearing it still felt like a punch. Yes, sir. Wait. He held up a hand. You misunderstand. You're fired as the night nurse. Because I'm hiring you as Sophia's full-time wet nurse, with a proper contract, proper compensation, and a formal apology for everything my wife put you through. Leah stared at him. What? You saved my daughter's life. I'm not letting you walk away. Roman's voice was firm now, controlled, the voice of a man who built empires and made billion-dollar decisions. Name your salary. Name your terms. Whatever you need, childcare for your own children, housing, medical benefits, paying off your debts, it's yours. Just please help me keep my daughter alive. Leah looked at Margaret, still sobbing in the chair. She looked at Sophia, sleeping peacefully in her father's arms. She thought about Sarah, about the promise. She thought about Nate and Lily, waiting at Charlotte's house. She thought about the funeral debt, the rent, the collectors, all of it crashing down. The funeral home, Leah said quietly. I owe them $8,000 for my daughter's burial. If I don't pay $3,000 by Friday, they send it to collections. Done. Roman didn't hesitate. What else? My rent, $800, due in 5 days. Done. My sister has my 2 children. I need them with me. I need a place where they can live too. Somewhere safe. Near good schools. There's a guest house on the property, 3 bedrooms. You can move in tomorrow. Roman shifted Sophia gently. Anything else? Leah looked at Margaret, who'd finally looked up, mascara streaking her face, her expression hollow. I need to know this won't happen again, Leah said carefully. I need to know that Sophia's health comes before pride, before appearances, before everything else. Roman nodded. You have my word. And I need, Leah's voice caught, I need to be able to grieve my own daughter while I'm caring for yours. I need grace for the days when it's hard, when it hurts, when I'm feeding your baby with milk that was meant for mine. Something shifted in Roman's face. Real compassion. Real understanding. You'll have it, he said quietly. All of it, I swear. The door opened. Dr. Reynolds rushed in, medical bag in hand, looking rumpled and worried. He stopped when he saw Sophia sleeping in Roman's arms. What happened? He asked. Mrs. Karen said there was an emergency. The night nurse fed her, Roman said. Breast milk. She's been asleep for 2 hours. No vomiting, no distress. Dr. Reynolds looked at Leah, then at Margaret, crying in the corner, then at the baby. "May I examine her?" he asked. Roman carefully transferred Sophia to the examination table. Dr. Reynolds worked quickly, checking her vitals, her weight, her hydration, her reflexes. The baby stirred but didn't fully wake, just made soft cooing sounds and settled back into sleep. Finally, Dr. Reynolds straightened up. He looked at all of them, his expression serious. "This baby has gained 5 ounces since my examination 3 days ago. Her hydration is improved. Her color is better. Her vitals are stable." He paused. "This is the first weight gain she's had in a month. Whatever happened tonight saved her life." Margaret let out a broken sob. Dr. Reynolds turned to her. His voice was gentle but firm. "Mrs. Ashford, I told you 8 days ago what this baby needed. I documented it. If you'd listened then, we could have avoided all of this." "I know," Margaret whispered. "I know. I couldn't what?" "Doctor," Reynolds asked. "Couldn't accept help? Couldn't admit you needed someone else? Couldn't let go of control long enough to save your daughter?" Margaret didn't answer. She just cried. Dr. Reynolds turned to Leah. "You're lactating?" "Yes, sir. My daughter, she passed 2 weeks ago." "SIDS." His expression softened. "I'm so sorry for your loss." Then, professionally, "Are you willing to continue as Sophia's wet nurse, with proper medical oversight and support?" Leah looked at Sophia, sleeping peacefully on the exam table. At this baby who was alive because Leah had broken every rule. "Yes," she said, "I'll stay." Dr. Reynolds nodded. "Then I'll write up a formal care plan, feeding schedule, weight monitoring, nutritional support for you. We'll do this right." He started packing up his bag, then paused. Looked at Margaret. "Mrs. Ashford, I'm also going to recommend therapy. For you. Because this," he gestured around the room, "this wasn't just about formula choices. This was about something deeper. And if you don't address it, it'll happen again." Margaret nodded mutely, her face buried in her hands. "Doctor." Reynolds left. Roman stood there holding his sleeping daughter, looking at his crying wife, then at Leah. "Thank you," he said quietly. I can't, just, thank you." Leah nodded. She didn't trust her voice. The darkest hour had passed, but the reckoning had just begun. The sun rose over the Ashford estate at 6:47 a.m., painting the gardens in shades of gold and pink. Leah sat in the nursery rocking chair, watching light filter through the gauze curtains, still holding Sophia. The baby had woken once around 4:30, nursed for 15 minutes, and fallen back asleep without a single cry, without pain, without the tortured whimpering that had defined her entire 6 weeks of life. It felt like a miracle. It felt like the first real breath Leah had taken since finding Sarah cold in her crib 2 weeks ago. Dr. Reynolds had stayed until almost 4 a.m., monitoring Sophia, taking detailed notes, drawing up a feeding schedule and care plan. He'd also taken Leah aside privately while Roman dealt with Margaret, who'd eventually been escorted to the guest house by Mrs. Karen, still crying. "What you did was brave, Doctor," Reynolds had said quietly. "It was also legally complicated. If Mrs. Ashford wanted to press charges, she could claim unauthorized contact with a minor. Assault, technically." Leah's stomach had dropped. "I know. But she won't, because she knows they both know that you saved their daughter's life when they failed to." He'd squeezed her shoulder gently. "Still, document everything, keep records, protect yourself." Now, in the early morning light, Leah heard footsteps in the hallway. Her body tensed, automatically conditioned to expect punishment, accusation, dismissal. The door opened softly. Roman stood there, still in his suit from yesterday, looking like he hadn't slept at all. His eyes were red-rimmed, his hair disheveled. He looked human, fallible. Nothing like the untouchable billionaire she'd glimpsed from a distance over the past 2 weeks. "How is she?" he asked quietly. "She woke up once around 4:30, nursed, went back to sleep. No vomiting, no distress." Leah shifted slightly so he could see Sophia's peaceful face. She's doing really well." Roman stepped closer, his movements careful, as if afraid to disturb the fragile peace in the room. He reached out and gently touched Sophia's hand. The baby's tiny fingers curled around his thumb instinctively, and Leah saw his face crumble for just a moment before he pulled himself together. "I didn't know," he said, his voice barely above a whisper. "I knew she was fussy. I knew Margaret was stressed about the feeding issues, but I didn't know it was this bad. I didn't." He stopped, swallowed hard. I failed her. I was so focused on the Singapore deal, on closing the acquisition, on building the company, that I failed my own daughter. Leah didn't know what to say to that. Didn't know if it was her place to offer comfort or condemnation. I lost my wife when Sophia was born, Roman continued, still looking at his daughter. Complications during delivery, hemorrhaging. They tried everything. But she was gone before I even got to say goodbye. His voice cracked. Margaret is my second wife. We married 8 months ago. Sophia isn't her biological daughter. She's been trying, but I don't think she ever really bonded with her. The confession hung in the air between them. Leah understood suddenly. The distance, the coldness, the way Margaret talked about Sophia like she was a project to be managed rather than a child to be loved. She was a stepmother who'd never wanted to be a mother at all. That doesn't excuse what she did, Leah said carefully, or what she didn't do. No, Roman agreed. It doesn't, but it explains it. He looked up at Leah finally. Doctor, Reynolds wrote up a contract. For your employment as Sophia's wet nurse, salary is $15,000 a month, plus housing, plus medical benefits for you and your children. The guest house is yours for as long as you need it. I've already had my attorney wire $3,000 to the funeral home. Your debt is settled. And I've paid your rent through the end of the year. Leah's breath caught. That's too much. It's not nearly enough for what you've done, for what you're giving up. Roman's voice was firm. You're using your body to save my daughter. You're feeding her with milk that was meant for your own child. That's not just labor. That's sacrifice. And I won't pretend it's anything less. Tears pricked Leah's eyes. In 2 weeks, no one had acknowledged what she'd lost. Not really. Everyone had said, I'm sorry, in that vague, uncomfortable way people do when they don't know what else to say. But no one had actually seen her grief, named it, honored it, until now. Thank you, she whispered. Roman nodded. The contract is on the kitchen counter. Look it over. If there's anything you need changed, tell me. I want you to feel secure here. Safe, respected. He paused. Mrs. Karen has been dismissed. I should have done it months ago. She created a culture in this house where staff were invisible, disposable. That changes today. Leah looked up sharply. You fired her? I did, this morning. She fought it, threatened legal action, but her contract was clear about her obligations to ensure the well-being of family members. She failed. Roman's jaw tightened. She knew Sophia was suffering. She saw it on the monitors, and she chose to protect Margaret's pride over my daughter's life. That's unforgivable. Leah thought about Mrs. Karen's warnings, about Hannah, blacklisted and destroyed, about the threat that had hung over Leah's head for days. Step out of line and you'll lose everything. What about Margaret? Leah asked quietly. Roman's expression went dark. She's moving into the guest house permanently. I've filed for divorce. She'll have no custody rights. Sophia isn't biologically hers. And after what happened, no court will give her access. He ran a hand through his hair. I should have protected my daughter. I should have been here. I should have. His voice broke again. I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry I let this happen. You didn't know, Leah said, echoing his own words from earlier. I should have known. That's the point. I'm her father. Roman looked at Sophia, sleeping peacefully in Leah's arms. From now on, I know. From now on, I'm here. And so are you. If you'll stay. Leah looked down at Sophia. At this baby, who wasn't hers, but who needed her anyway. At this child who was alive because Leah had been brave enough to break the rules. She thought about Sarah, about the promise she'd made in the rain. She thought about Nate and Lily, who she'd get to bring home now, who'd have a safe place to live, good schools, a future that wasn't defined by poverty and struggle. She thought about the milk, her body still produced milk, that would never feed her own daughter, but could save someone else's. I'll stay, Leah said. Relief washed over Roman's face. Thank you, thank you. A soft knock on the door. Roman opened it. A woman stood there, mid-40s, warm brown skin, kind eyes, wearing professional but comfortable clothes. She smiled gently. Mr. Ashford, I'm Angela Torres, the lactation consultant Dr. Reynolds called. He asked me to come by this morning to help set up a feeding schedule and provide support. Of course. Come in. Roman stepped aside. Angela walked in and immediately went to Leah, crouching down beside the rocking chair with easy familiarity. You must be Leah, Doctor, Reynolds told me about you, about your daughter. I'm so sorry for your loss. Something about the way she said it, direct, sincere, without the usual discomfort, made Leah's eyes burn with tears. Thank you, she managed. What you're doing is incredible, Angela continued. Nursing this baby while grieving your own. That takes a strength most people can't even imagine. She glanced at Sophia. And she's beautiful. Look at her color already. You saved her life. Leah nodded, unable to speak. Angela spent the next hour going over everything optimal, feeding positions, how to maintain Leah's milk supply, nutrition guidelines for Leah herself, what to watch for in Sophia's development, how to balance Leah's physical needs with Sophia's demands. She was thorough, professional, but also deeply compassionate. You need to eat more, Angela said firmly. A lot more. You're producing milk for a growing infant while your body is still recovering from your own loss. I'm writing up a meal plan. The chef here, she glanced at Roman, will prepare everything you need. High protein, high calories, lots of water. This isn't negotiable. Whatever she needs, Roman said immediately. Angela also addressed the elephant in the room. Leah, you're going to have hard days. Days when nursing Sophia feels like it's breaking you open. Days when you resent her for being alive when Sarah isn't. That's normal. That's human. When those days come, you call me. Day or night. I'm here. Leah's throat tightened. Okay. And we're going to set up grief counseling for you too. Someone who specializes in pregnancy and infant loss. Because you can't pour from an empty cup, sweetheart. You need support too. For the first time in 2 weeks, Leah felt like someone actually saw her. Not as a tool, not as a solution, but as a human being who was drowning and needed help. Thank you, she whispered. Angela squeezed her hand. You're not alone anymore. After Angela left, Roman excused himself to make calls arranging for Leah's belongings to be moved from her apartment to the guest house, setting up accounts for the children's school enrollment, handling the 1,000 details that came with rebuilding a life. Leah sat alone with Sophia as morning light filled the nursery. The baby stirred, yawned, her little mouth opening in a perfect O. Her eyes fluttered open, clear and bright now, no longer glazed with pain. Good morning, sweet girl, Leah whispered. Ready for breakfast? Sophia made a soft cooing sound, and Leah laughed, actually laughed for the first time since Sarah died. She adjusted Sophia in her arms and began to nurse her. The baby latched eagerly, drinking with the desperate hunger of a child who'd finally learned that eating wouldn't hurt anymore. Leah looked out the window at the gardens, at the sun rising over a world that felt different than it had 12 hours ago. The turning point had come. She'd risked everything, and somehow, impossibly, it had worked. Now came the hard part, living with the choice. Healing while helping someone else's child thrive. Finding a way to honor Sarah's memory while saving Sophia's life. But for the first time since Sarah died, Leah felt something she hadn't felt in weeks. Hope. 3 days later, everything changed again. Leah had moved into the guest house with Nate and Lily. Charlotte had driven them up from the city, her face a mixture of relief and disbelief when she saw the 3-bedroom cottage with its own kitchen, its own garden, its proximity to the main estate. This is yours? Charlotte had asked, walking through rooms that had crown molding and hardwood floors, and windows that let in so much light it felt like living inside sunshine. For as long as I need it, Leah had said, still not quite believing it herself. Nate had run through the house, whooping with joy, claiming the bedroom with the window seat. Lily had cried and clung to Leah's leg, not understanding why Mommy had left for so long, not ready to trust that she wouldn't leave again. I'm here now, baby, Leah had whispered, holding her daughter close. I'm here and I'm not going anywhere. Now, on the 3rd morning, Leah was in the main house nursery with Sophia, who'd gained 12 ounces in 72 hours. 12 ounces, Dr. Reynolds had examined her that morning and pronounced her thriving. The word had made Leah's chest ache with bittersweet joy. Thriving. This baby who'd been dying was now thriving. The nursery door opened and Roman walked in, his expression tense. We need to talk, he said quietly. Leah's stomach dropped. She'd learned in her life that we need to talk never meant good news. What's wrong? Roman closed the door behind him. Margaret is fighting the divorce. She's hired attorneys, expensive ones. They're claiming that she has rights to Sophia as the legal stepmother, that I'm acting rashly, that the marriage can be saved with counseling. Can they do that? They can try. The problem is, Roman ran a hand through his hair, agitated. The problem is they're going to argue that I'm being influenced by you. That you've manipulated the situation to insert yourself into our family. That you deliberately created a crisis so you'd be indispensable. Leah felt cold. That's not... I know it's not true. But Margaret's attorneys are going to paint it that way. They're going to make you look like the villain. Roman's voice was tight with anger. They're going to say you took advantage of a grieving woman, me and a vulnerable infant, to secure employment and housing. They're going to twist what you did into something predatory. So what do? Roman met her eyes. We fight back. With the truth. All of it. What does that mean? It means we go public. I give an interview. Tell the whole story how Margaret refused medical advice. How the doctors documented her negligence. How you saved Sophia's life at risk to your own livelihood. How she was at a gallery opening while our daughter was dying. Roman's jaw clenched. It'll destroy her reputation. She'll be crucified in the press. But it'll also protect you. And more importantly, it'll protect Sophia. Leah looked down at the baby in her arms, sleeping peacefully after her morning feeding. If we do this, Margaret will hate me forever. She'll never stop trying to hurt me. She doesn't have to hate you. She already does. Roman's voice was flat. But she can't touch you if the world knows the truth. Public opinion is powerful, especially when it comes to a mother who almost let her child starve. Leah thought about Hannah. Blacklisted, destroyed, unable to work in childcare ever again because she dared to suggest that Margaret tried donor milk. What about the medical records? Leah asked. The ones showing that Dr. Reynolds recommended breast milk and Margaret declined? I have copies. So does Dr. Reynolds. That's our evidence. Roman paused. But there's something else. Something I found this morning that changes everything. He pulled out his phone, pulled up a video file, and handed it to Leah. The security footage from the night you nursed Sophia. I pulled the full recording. Watch. Leah pressed play. The video showed the nursery from the camera's angle. Timestamp 11:47 p.m. Margaret entering the room, looking annoyed. Leah trying to tell her that Sophia needed a doctor. Margaret dismissing her, saying the baby was just being difficult, and leaving. Then the timestamp jumped. 12:52 a.m. Margaret entering again, this time with her phone, checking the security app. She stood there for a full 3 minutes, watching the monitor. Watching Leah hold Sophia. Watching the baby refuse the bottle. Watching Leah's tears. And then, Margaret turned and left. Didn't go to the nursery. Didn't check on her daughter. Just left. The footage jumped again, 1:47 a.m. Roman's home office. Margaret sitting at his desk, looking through the medical files. The folder open in front of her. Dr. Reynolds' notes clearly visible. She read them, closed the folder, and left. She knew. She'd known all along how bad it was. The final clip, 2:43 a.m. Margaret in her bedroom, getting ready for the gallery opening. Makeup, jewelry, designer dress. Her phone on the vanity showing the nursery camera feed. Sophia visible on the screen, limp and barely moving. Margaret glanced at it once, then turned off her phone screen and left for her event. Leah's hands shook as she handed the phone back to Roman. She watched her die. She watched her suffer and did nothing, because the event was more important, because her image was more important. Roman's voice was ice. That footage is time-stamped, dated, undeniable. If her attorneys try to claim she didn't know how serious it was, this proves she's lying. What happens if you release this? She loses everything. Custody battle, done. Divorce settlement, minimal. Public reputation, destroyed. She'll be the woman who chose a gallery opening over her dying stepdaughter. Roman looked at Leah. But I won't do it without your permission. Because releasing this means your story goes public too. Your loss, your sacrifice, your grief. The world will know everything. Leah thought about Sarah, about the promise. She thought about Sophia, thriving now but vulnerable to a legal system that might give her back to a woman who'd proven she couldn't be trusted. She thought about Nate and Lily, finally safe, finally stable, finally home. Do it, Leah said. Release everything. Tell the truth. Roman nodded slowly. You're sure? I'm sure. Leah's voice was steady. Because this isn't just about protecting Sophia anymore. It's about making sure this never happens to another child. If Margaret can get away with this, what's to stop other parents from doing the same thing? From valuing pride over their children's lives? Nothing, Roman said quietly. Then we don't let her get away with it. Roman made the call right there, with Leah listening. His publicist, his attorneys. The plan came together quickly. An exclusive interview with a major news network to air in 48 hours. Full disclosure, medical records, security footage, Dr. Reynolds' testimony, Leah's story, all of it. After he hung up, Roman looked at Leah with something like awe. You're braver than anyone I've ever met. I'm not brave, Leah said, looking down at Sophia. I'm just tired of watching people in power hurt people who can't fight back. I'm tired of being invisible. I'm tired of pretending that what happened to your daughter is normal or acceptable, or anything other than what it is, neglect. It's more than neglect, Roman said quietly. It's abuse, and the footage proves it. 2 days later, the interview aired. Leah sat in the guest house with Charlotte, Nate, and Lily, watching herself on national television. Watching Roman tell the story with quiet devastation in his voice. Watching Dr. Reynolds present the medical evidence. Watching the security footage play, time-stamped and undeniable. And watching Margaret's life implode in real time. The story went viral within hours. Number Sophia Ashford trended on every platform. Think pieces appeared analyzing parental neglect in wealthy families, the stigma around breastfeeding, the invisible labor of domestic workers. Margaret's social media accounts were flooded with thousands of comments calling her a monster, demanding justice, expressing outrage. She tried to fight back, posted a tearful video claiming she'd been misunderstood, that she'd loved Sophia, that Leah had manipulated the situation. But the security footage was already public, time-stamped, showing her watching her daughter suffer and choosing a party instead. The video was deleted within an hour. Her accounts went private. Her attorneys issued a statement saying she was seeking mental health treatment. It was over. 3 weeks later, the divorce was finalized. Margaret received a minimal settlement and 0 custody rights. She moved out of state, reportedly to stay with family in California, and disappeared from public view. The Ashford estate was quiet again. But it was a different kind of quiet now. Not the oppressive silence of neglect and suffering, but the peaceful quiet of a house where a baby was finally, truly safe. Sophia gained weight steadily. By 8 weeks, she was 11 pounds. By 10 weeks, she was laughing. By 3 months, she was reaching for toys, babbling, tracking faces with bright, curious eyes. Leah nursed her 6 times a day. Watching this child who wasn't hers grow strong and healthy on milk meant for Sarah. And every time Sophia latched, every time she drank and smiled and thrived, Leah whispered the same words. This is for you, Sarah. This is your legacy, baby girl. You're saving her too. Roman kept his promises. Leah's salary was deposited on time, every time. Nate enrolled in a private school 5 minutes away and thrived. Lily started pre-K and made friends. Charlotte visited every weekend, still shocked by the guest house, by the security, by the way Leah's life had transformed. You did it, Charlotte said one afternoon, watching Leah nurse Sophia in the garden while Nate and Lily played nearby. You saved her. We saved each other, Leah said quietly. Because it was true. Sophia had given Leah's grief a purpose, had given her body's betrayal, still producing milk for a dead child, a reason, had given her the strength to wake up every morning and choose to keep going. And Leah had given Sophia life, simple as that. Life when everyone else had been willing to let her die. The climax had come and gone. Justice had been served, imperfect but real. Now came the part no one talks about, learning to live in the after, learning to hold joy and grief in the same hands. Learning that saving someone doesn't erase your own loss, but it does give it meaning. And sometimes, meaning is enough. 6 months later, Leah stood in the garden behind the guest house, watching the late April sun paint everything gold. Sophia was 9 months old now, 17 pounds of healthy, happy baby who crawled everywhere and pulled herself up on furniture and babbled mama sounds that made Leah's heart ache in complicated ways. She wasn't Sophia's mother, would never be Sophia's mother, but she was the person who fed her, who rocked her to sleep, who kissed her forehead and whispered, "I've got you," when she cried. That had to count for something. Leah had weaned Sophia 2 weeks ago. The pediatrician said she was ready, eating solids well, drinking from a cup, developmentally on track. Leah's body had been ready too. After 9 months of nursing, her supply had naturally started decreasing. The timing was right, but it still felt like saying goodbye to Sarah all over again. The day Sophia took her last nursing, Leah had held her for an extra hour afterward, crying silently while the baby slept against her chest. Crying for Sarah, for the child she'd never get to wean. Crying for Sophia, who she'd have to start separating from now. Crying for herself, for the identity she was losing. Wet nurse, life giver, the woman whose body had saved a child. Who was she now, without that? Leah? Roman's voice came from the garden gate. Can we talk? She turned. He was holding Sophia, who immediately reached for Leah with grabby hands and delighted squeals. Leah took her, settled her on her hip with the easy competence of 9 months of practice. What's up? Roman looked nervous. It was strange seeing him uncertain, this man who ran a tech empire, who made billion-dollar decisions, who'd face down his wife's attorneys and the international press without flinching. I have a proposition, he said, and I need you to hear the whole thing before you answer. Leah's stomach tightened. Okay. Sophia needs a mother, not just a caregiver, a real mother, someone who's legally recognized as her parent, who has decision-making rights, who she can call mom without confusion or complication. Roman took a breath. I want to know if you'd consider adopting her, legally, permanently. The world tilted. What? Leah whispered. I've talked to attorneys. Because you're not biologically related, and because of the unusual circumstances, it would be structured as a co-parenting adoption. I'd retain full parental rights, but you'd have them too. Equal custody, equal decision-making, equal legal standing. Sophia would have 2 parents who actually want her, who actually see her. Leah looked down at Sophia, who was chewing on her own fingers and grinning up at her with 4 tiny teeth. Roman, I can't just... She's your daughter. She's alive because of you. She's thriving because of you. You've been her mother in every way that matters for 9 months. I'm just asking you to make it official. Roman's voice was earnest. I know this is huge. I know I'm asking you to tie yourself to this family permanently, but Leah, you already are tied to us. Sophia loves you. She reaches for you first when she's scared. She calms down when you hold her. She's bonded to you in ways she never bonded with Margaret. I'm not trying to replace her mother, Leah said quickly. Catherine would have loved you, Roman interrupted gently. She would have been grateful that someone like you was helping raise her daughter. She would have trusted you. His voice caught. I trust you, completely. And I think Sophia deserves to have that trust reflected in legal reality. Leah felt tears burning her eyes. What about Nate and Lily? They'd have to understand. They already understand, I asked them. Leah stared at him. You what? I took them out for ice cream last week. Asked them how they'd feel if Sophia became their sister. Officially, Roman smiled slightly. Nate said, that's cool. She's basically already my sister. Lily said, does this mean we get to stay in the house forever? When I said yes, she said, okay then. Despite everything, Leah laughed. That sounded exactly like her children. This is insane, she whispered. I know, but so was everything else. You nursing a stranger's baby. Me divorcing my wife on national television. You moving into my guest house with your children. All of it was insane. Roman looked at her steadily. But it worked. Against every odd, it worked. So maybe we stop questioning it and just let it be what it is. A family that doesn't look like anyone else's but works anyway. Leah looked at Sophia. At this baby who'd been dying and was now thriving. Who grabbed Leah's hair and laughed when Leah made funny faces. Who'd learned to crawl while Leah cheered her on. Who'd said her first word, mama, while looking directly at Leah, even though they'd been trying to teach her Dada first. She thought about Sarah, about the promise she'd made in the rain. She thought about how Sarah's death had led to Sophia's life. How grief and joy could exist in the same space, tangled together, impossible to separate. Can I think about it? Leah asked. Take all the time you need, Roman said. That night, Leah sat in Sophia's nursery, the one in the main house that Roman had completely redesigned. The cold, sterile space with expensive furniture had been transformed into something warm. Soft rugs, photographs on the walls, toys scattered across the floor, a rocking chair that Leah had picked out herself. Sophia slept in her crib, breathing steady and deep, healthy, safe, loved. Leah pulled out her phone and opened her photos. Found the album labeled Sarah. Scrolled through pictures of her daughter, 3 months of life captured in hundreds of images. Sarah sleeping, Sarah in her bouncer, Sarah with her tiny fist wrapped around Leah's finger. I miss you, baby girl, Leah whispered. Every single day, I miss you. She looked at Sophia, then back at Sarah's pictures. But I think maybe you sent her to me. Maybe you knew I'd need her as much as she needed me. Maybe this was always the plan, even when it felt like the world was ending. Leah wiped her eyes. I'll never stop being your mama. You'll always be mine. But I think maybe I have room in my heart for both of you. I think maybe that's okay. She closed the album, opened her text messages, found Roman's name. Yes, she typed. Let's start the adoption paperwork. She hit send before she could second-guess herself. 3 seconds later, her phone rang. Roman's voice was thick with emotion. You're sure? I'm sure, Leah said. Sophia deserves a mother who chooses her, who sees her, who fought for her when no one else would. Maybe I've been that person all along. Thank you, Roman said quietly. Thank you for saving her. Thank you for staying. Thank you for everything. After they hung up, Leah sat in the nursery for another hour, just watching Sophia sleep. 6 months ago, she'd been drowning, buried under debt, grief, impossible choices. She'd been invisible, another black woman working for a wealthy white family, expected to stay silent and compliant and grateful for whatever crumbs they threw her. Now she was a mother to 3 children. She had a home, security, a partner in Roman who respected her, consulted her, treated her as an equal. She had a future that didn't involve wondering how she'd pay next month's bills. She had a life rebuilt from the ruins of the one that had shattered. The adoption took 4 months. There were home studies, interviews, background checks, court hearings. But in the end, on a Tuesday afternoon in August, Leah stood in a courthouse with Roman on one side and Sophia in her arms, and heard a judge say, "The adoption is granted. Sophia Catherine Ashford is now the legal daughter of both Roman Ashford and Leah Mitchell." Nate and Lily cheered from the gallery. Charlotte cried. Roman's eyes were suspiciously bright as he shook the judge's hand. Leah looked down at Sophia, her daughter now, legally and forever, and felt something click into place. A piece of her heart that had been broken since Sarah died suddenly felt, not healed, not whole, but held together, supported, strong enough to keep beating. "Hey, sweet girl," she whispered. "We're official now. You're stuck with me." Sophia grinned and grabbed Leah's nose. After the courthouse, they went to the cemetery. All of them, Roman, Leah, the 3 children. They stood at Sarah's grave, under the oak tree where sunlight filtered through in the mornings. Leah knelt and placed flowers on the headstone. Sarah Grace Mitchell, heaven's newest angel. "Sarah," Leah said softly, "I want you to meet your sister. Her name is Sophia. She's alive because you taught me that love is stronger than fear, that some things are worth risking everything for, that invisible people matter." She paused. "Thank you for that lesson, baby girl. I'll carry it with me forever." She stood. Roman took her hand on one side. Nate took her hand on the other. Lily held Sophia, who was trying to eat her own shoe. They stood there as a family, broken and rebuilt, and strange and perfect, and Leah felt something she hadn't felt in a year. Peace. Not the absence of grief, but the presence of something stronger. Purpose. Love. The knowledge that she'd taken her worst pain and transformed it into someone else's salvation. That night, back at the estate home now, really home, Leah put all 3 children to be D, Nate in his room with the window seat, Lily in hers with the fairy lights, Sophia in the nursery with the rocking chair. She stood in the doorway of Sophia's room, watching her daughter sleep, and thought about the night 9 months ago when she'd made an impossible choice. She'd risked everything, her job, her income, her freedom, her future, and somehow, impossibly, beautifully, she'd gained everything instead. The underdog had won, the invisible woman had been seen, the child everyone else had given up on was thriving, and Leah the black maid who dared to believe her body could save a billionaire's baby was finally, completely, wholly enough. She closed the door softly and whispered into the darkness. Nothing was ever the same, and thank God for that. If this story moved you, don't just watch and leave. I need you to do something. Hit that subscribe button right now. Drop a comment telling me where you're watching from and whose story changed your life. Share this video with someone who needs to remember that one person, one brave choice, can change everything. Because that's what we're building here. A community that refuses to look away, a place where the underdog wins, where the humble are honored, where invisible people finally get seen. Leah risked everything to save Sophia. What are you willing to risk to make sure stories like this keep getting told? Subscribe, comment, be part of this movement. I'll see you in the next story. Until then, remember, sometimes all a miracle needs is someone willing to give everything they have, even the milk meant for the child they lost, to save the child standing right in front of them.